Hey, welcome back to Engineers Workshop. Past couple of years I've done a Thanksgiving shop update, and this year I'm a little bit behind on time, so let's just call this a post-Thanksgiving shop update. And I'll just take you handheld and I'll walk you around and show you all of the things that have changed and all of the things that are still the same as they were last year, which is pretty much a 50-50 split. So let me take you handheld and give you the highlights, and we'll go from there. So we've got our 74 F350 still sitting with the front end on jacks and still with the engine partially torn down. I am pretty much 99% sure I've got engine damage in there because the engine has a very, very tight spot when I've been trying to just bar it around. And I don't see an easy way out of that. The contingency plan is to pull this and convert it to a 390. I do have a 390 crank, and my most recent acquisition is a 4-barrel intake. This came out of a truck engine, a 428 truck engine, according to the gentleman I bought it from. Now my plans are to adapt a Rochester Quadrajet. I don't know anything about Holleys, but when you look at the Quadrajet base, it's a huge difference in ports. So I'm going to make an adapter plate that brings these Venturis and flares them down. I'm going to open this up as much as I can, and then I've got Rochester Quadrajets in spades, so I will use that, and we'll turn this into a 4-barrel 390. Probably use D heads, get the bigger valve D heads, keep the compression up at a reasonable level, and try to make this truck perform a little bit better while I've got to rebuild the engine anyway. Son's TDI engine is ready to go back together after he painted it, and I made the head locating dowels. There's a video on that if you care to watch it. Still have my son's Spitfire project in the works, and the 63 Thunderbird. That's a long-term project for my son. I think I made a short video about the Fay & Egan 8-inch joiner. Was alerted to this from a friend on Facebook Marketplace. A guy just wanted to get rid of it. He wanted $50 for it. I felt bad giving him just $50, so I ended up giving him $100 for it. But the thing is basically in running condition. It was a little rusty on the bed, but the cutter head, it's Babbitt bearing. It's a 2-knife cutter head. One of the knives is setting high. So when I'm joining boards, it's actually only hitting on one of the knives. It's got a very unusual 0.41 square recess in the gib screws. So I have to make an insert for the socket wrench to be able to take those knives out. Both the infeed and the outfeed are adjustable. I do have the cutter head guard, the broken part, so we can aluminum weld that, but it's just a heck of a joiner. The motor for the joiner, tried to get the pulley off, and the bushing, I think it's a P1 bushing, I think it must have been cast iron, because it broke apart rather than come out. And so now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get this thing out. I'm going to have to spot face it and drill some tapped holes in it. I hate beating on the pulley just to try to loosen the taper, because this is a kind of a neat old 2-horsepower motor with sleeve bearings in it. Motor was absolutely full of dirt. I used the blowgun and just kept rotating it, and dirt, I bet you there was a quart of dirt inside that motor. Buddy Heath is storing a 1964 F800 at the shop here. Massive truck. and he said I was welcome to this engine, which gentleman that sold it to him claimed was a 390. Turns out it's not. It's a 360 FT, and it's just got some interesting features. It doesn't mean that the engine's usable to me, but look at that high-mounted radiator fan on a pedestal. Haven't seen anything like that. But all of the FT, like the front end, the water pump and everything is specific to the FT block. The exhaust manifolds are specific to it. But the only potential for this thing to be of use is if it's a high nickel block, and there's a certain casting number that you can read. It's like a 502 or something cast on the front end of the block that designates it as a high nickel block. Haven't cleaned it off enough to see if it if it has that or not, but it's a 2-barrel 360, so I might as well rebuild the 360 FE block that I have in the 74 F350. This truck has about a 14-foot bed and dual rear wheels and a lift gate. Heath's plans are to put a Cummins turbo diesel in it in transmission, so he just doesn't need the powertrain at all. Quincy's been providing air consistently and faithfully, and it holds pressure pretty good. I mean, it was charged up to 150 pounds. I used a little bit of air the other day, and I mean, it really basically just sits there. Got the Marshkey grinder, division of Black & Decker, 12-inch by 2. That's a neat thing to have. This is a double-ended buffer, not mine, but my buddy Hunter is storing this indefinitely over here. And that's a 208 motor. Coming around the back side, I have the guard painted up and installed on the compressor. Now I can work in this area without fear of getting dragged into that belt. Still working with the 3-phase as a 45 kVA transformer and a 30 horsepower idler to generate 3-phase. And there's the panel for the shop. Also, it will generate 3-phase at 240, and this will create 460. My 48-inch inspection table is moved over into this area, a little bit more protected area in the shop. It's precision leveled in both directions. Currently, I've got a lot of parts sitting on it that came off of a new acquisition. That's a Cincinnati #2 grinder. So I have a couple of sets of centers for it. I have a Rockwell, I believe this is called a Univice, good for holding lathe tools and single point cutters and sharpening those at any angle that you want. New small inverter. This is a 1.5 kilowatt inverter that I'm going to mount to power the K&T and the grinder. And the 4 kilowatt inverter is going to go in place of the fin core. The fin core died on me, so I don't know how to fix it. It's just it keeps faulting when you try to power it on. So I've been running the Quincy on the Chinese 4 kilowatt inverter, and it runs just fine on that. So I'm going to permanently mount that and use it. Here's an item we got. My son got, thinking he's going to use it to cut steel stock. It's a Rockwell Delta mitering chop saw, metal cutting chop saw, and this thing will cut up to like a 60-degree miter. It goes way beyond 45. It's a very well made saw, but I don't think we have a very good wheel in it. Once you bring it down, then the guard seats itself and you can continue to push the blade on through the material. It cuts, but it makes a lot of sparks and not a lot of progress, it seems like. And if that's in the wheel and someone knows a better wheel to use on this thing, this is for sale. Contact my son at the facility on YouTube and make him an offer. The Acroturn 1340 has been got into the headstock, changed out all the gears with the broken teeth that Doozer had purchased, and so everything inside here is in good condition. It's oiled up, ready to go. The one item that we have to correct on this, if you recall, this thing was dumped out of the truck on the way, is broken motor mount. So the plate that pivots the motor on the back of the machine is broken, and I've got to get the motor off and either braze or refabricate a new motor mount for it, and then finish cleaning this thing up, and we'll have a working lathe for the shop. This also belongs to a buddy Heath, the same guy who owns the F800. Heath had an opportunity to get a free Rockwell 1/2-inch spindle shaper, so he generously gifted that to myself, and I'm going to generously gift this to my son. I have 2 other shapers that I use, and so this would be number 3. I think 2 of any specific machine is probably enough, and I will pass this one on to someone who can use it. In addition to the Quincy 340, I have what I'm calling the baby Quincy, and this is a I think it's a 216. It's a 2-cylinder. It's pretty heavy. It weighs a couple hundred pounds, and it's been fully rebuilt. So this thing's still bolted to the pallet as it came back from the rebuild shop. So I got to find a tank and get this thing mounted up. Be a perfect about 3 horsepower compressor up to 100 psi. And if I really want to make some air, I go over to the Quincy 25. It's either 20 or 25 horsepower screw compressor, QGB 25. This was a process air compressor at a water treatment plant. It had a lot of service. There was 2 installed, and it was either running in lead or in lag, so it's either the primary air source or the backup air source, and they switched them every 6 months or so. It was serviced by a local firm, so whenever it needed oil or gaskets or any small consumables, it was taken care of. The PLC ended up dying, and that's why they just changed out both of these. So I'm pretty confident that the PLC died for a very simple reason, like power supply component on the board or something like that. But even if I can't resurrect that, the mechanicals and the air side are all just completely fine. So it has like I said, a 20 or 25 horse motor and a 1 horse refrigerated dryer. This thing will put out an absolute ton of air. Got this for spinning the Skinner steam engine. The one downside is it's 460 only. Skinner steam engine is moved over under the crane, under the hoist. My next item that I've got to tackle is scraping in the face of the valve ports to reduce the leakage. I had the steam chest cover resurfaced by Dave Richards up in New York, old steam-powered machine shop. He's got a video on that. And I had the slide valve and the balance valve faces surface ground locally at a shop. So this surface is the only one remaining. Once I get this thing trued up a little bit, I really think this thing will spin over with the amount of air capacity I have, and that'll be really neat to see this running again. This is my small surface plate, my 24 by 36, and my large angle plate, 12 by 18, weighs about 100 pounds. This drill press is from the late 1800s. due to the round base and the round table. WF&J Barnes. It's a needle drill, completely functional. I've used this to drill some 9/16 holes in 2 inches of solid steel, and it can just muscle right through it. So needle drill press just needs a little bit of cleanup and a slightly more permanent motor mount to drive it. No progress on the Monarch 16 by 54 engine lathe. I still have it up on the steel sawhorses and with the headstock on the back side there. I do want to get back on this and start cleaning and painting the machine, the Monarch up. All of the Monarch components are here. They were in various stages of being reconditioned, and they're kind of in semi-permanent storage back here, and they're starting to get some flash rust on them. I've really got to get back on this. K&T, we just finished a job. You haven't seen the video on this yet, but I finished making 2 sets of ER40 Collet adapters, and you can see the one set is on there. I've got a cutoff saw mounted in it, and I use that to split the final retaining collar, this one right here, that's split, to hold the ER40 Collet adapter in the original spindle. So that's worked out really well. So that brings me to the newest machine, newest old machine in the shop, which is a Cincinnati No. 2 tool and cutter grinder. This is a war baby. It's from the 40s. It's got the old school style flat belt drive from the base. So the motor drives a flat belt that goes up the column into the spindle, and the spindle is the oiled type. It is not the grease or permanently grease type. Condition is it's used, it's a grinder, and the ways have a little bit of it starts out, they look pretty much perfect out here, but then the indentation from the balls is a little bit more pronounced in the middle. I'm going to start cleaning this up and getting new balls in here. The original ones, they mic'd out at a 1/2 thousandths under 3/4 of an inch. Now, I was reading that they wear a couple of tenths, but they were consistently like 5 to 6 tenths under. I measured them a bunch of different ways, and I won't say there's variation, but they were all, I'm going to call it undersized. So I bought 3/4 inch ball bearings from McMaster. I've read how you're supposed to get the highest precision and yada yada yada, but when I can't replace these ways, and I'm just going to be sharpening tooling and stuff like that, this machine is never going to perform like it was new. There's quite a bit of play in some of the shafts, and some of them sound a little bit gritty. The table moves very nicely. One of the nicest features on this machine, which I got in an auction, it was lot 53, was the DRO. So there's a Mitutoyo DRO. Let me swing this around. Nope, I can't swing it around because of my cord length. How do I free this up? There we go. So this DRO reads in tenths. It's a nicer DRO than what I have. And one of the things I thought of doing was, boy, I could put this scale on the K&T, but it's too short for my x-axis travel by like an inch. And I priced them, and I can't afford to buy Mitutoyo scales for it. It's got the round style connector, but man, if I could find a way or hit the lottery, I would buy new scales and swap it out for the Analam Wizard that's on this, which only reads in half thousandths. It'll be nice though to have a DRO for this that reads in tenths for making minute adjustments in the grinding. I've got the special mobile Velocite spindle oil for this, which is a very light, about a probably a 10 weight oil for the oil cups there. There's a little bit of I'm just going to call it a slight vibration when it's running, and I took the belt off the motor and I ran just the motor, and there's still that slight vibration. So I think 80 to 90% of it is coming from the motor. I don't know if the pulley's out of balance or if the bearings are just not that great in the motor. When I spin the bearings in just the spindle, they seem smooth as anything, and from what I've read, these are a real pain to replace those, if you can even find good replacements for it. There's still gaping doorway holes in the shop. The door at the end that was lost to a Category 0 tornado, so 12 by 16 feet. And these panels on the end wall were never enclosed, so the panels from the door were scattered clear across the lot, and the steel out there from the door frame, which is 3-inch by 1/8 wall square tubing, that was also scattered clear across the lot. My son's got the welder over here. This is the trailer for the SRAM Pneuma Power air compressor. Got my son's Walker Turner radial arm drill over here. Got a couple of almost matching cabinets that say United Delco. Nice metal storage for tooling. And have about 96 heavy-duty 2-foot by 3-foot shelving to make a mini warehouse. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sorry there was no real content in this other than, you know, the new equipment and the updates that I presented to you, but I wanted to get something out. It's been a couple weeks since I did another video. I've got a couple of small projects for the K&T coming up. I've got to get it's suspension bushing that had a M12 bolt frozen inside of it. We had to cut the suspension apart, and then I've got to mill out the bolt out of that bushing rather than try to press the bushing out and get a new one. We're just gonna mill the bolt out and put it back. So we'll get on with that one. And of course the ER40 Collet adapter for the K&T. Get that video out to you very soon. So thanks again for watching Engineers Workshop, and until next time, as always, stay safe.